tour around the grounds of Elvaston Castle. Elvaston lies in southeastern Derbyshire, not too far from the borders with Leicestershire and not far from Nottinghamshire. And Elvaston Country Park encloses about 321 acres. Includes open parkland, woodland, a lake, a church and various follies. The first recorded settlers in the area may have been the Saxons, but they were not the first to live in the area. Gravel workings at neighbouring village of Shardlow have revealed Iron Age artefacts, Bronze Age dugout boats which are in Derby Museum, and earlier flint tools. Another bit of interesting history takes us back to the 9th century, when 3 Danes, whose names are put above, settled near the Derwent River when it was the Danelaw. And these settlements became known as the above. I'm not going to try and pronounce them, but we recognise them today as Elvaston, Amberston and Thulston. And then by the 11th century, the Domesday Book says the 3 manors were described as being held by a bloke called Tetchy. And by the mid-12th century, the estate was given to the Abbot of Shelford, and it remained in his descendants' hands until the dissolution in the 16th century. It then passed to the Stanhope family, who first came to Elvaston in the 16th century when Henry VIII granted it to Michael Stanhope, who was also granted other manors, and he became a powerful landowner of over 4,000 acres. Now the building we see today is described as a Gothic revival masterpiece and was designed in the 1800s based on the original house dating back to 1633. The original house being severely damaged during the Civil War by parliamentarian forces on orders of Oliver Cromwell. And in 1829 the estate was inherited by the 4th Earl, who could be described as a 19th century eccentric dandy. And towards the end of the 1820s he met and fell in love with a Maria Foot, an actress, and she was said to, in them days, as something of a checkered past. I don't know what that means. But the couple married in 1831 and London society didn't receive them well. And as a result of this, the Earl and the Countess retreated to Elvaston. And the 4th Earl appointed a William Baron to create a romantic pleasure garden for the married couple. Now Maria and Charles are described as inseparable, and they all wanted the gardens to be private and secluded, like an oasis of great beauty, for himself and the love of his life. William Baron spent the next 20 years working on the gardens, and he even brought in full-grown trees apparently. The couple are said to value their garden for the romantic seclusion it offered. However, following the death of their only son, aged 4, the couple isolated themselves at the castle, never leaving and forbidding anyone to enter the grounds. See that? In 1964, the estate was first put up for sale and eventually bought by an aggregates consortium or corporation who failed to gain planning permissions to demolish the castle and extract aggregates from the site after various attempts, as corporations do. And they sold the estate to Derbyshire County Council, and it was opened as the first country park in England in 1970. As for today, the grounds are lovely, but the castle has been neglected, needs a lot of work, so obviously due to that it's not open. And the estate contains many varied structures including church, stables, kennels, a walled garden, a farm, several cottages and a boathouse. Now this is Springthorpe Cottage or Lodge, and it's situated where it would have been the main gate to the outer courtyard, and it's one of several that were located around the estate, but only two were built in the Moorish style, and it was constructed in 1850. It appears to only really consist of two rooms, probably with a scullery at the rear. Our last recorded occupant was a Mr. Edwin Springthorpe, who carried out duties as handyman at the estate. And as I understand it, him and his wife were the proud parents of a rather large family. But what they did with him all at meal times and bedtimes in something this small, oh, curious that is. Now this is the Moorish temple, and it was built as a summer house for the 4th Earl in 1846, and it was built using the finest chinoiserie or Chinese style. Now the shape of the pavilion is a bit unusual, with tapering basement walls and upper side walls curving in about halfway up. It's said to include various Gothic and chivalrous mottos similar to that found inside the castle. It's a gorgeous location with its stained glass windows. Now if you could see inside, it's got rope twist plasterwork and statues depicting the 4th Earl and his great love Maria Fute. And it also featured in the Ken Russell film Women in Love, 1969, with Glenda Jackson. Now this structure is known as a mound for some reason, and it has been fenced off because of people clambering over it causing damage. Most of the fence is down, so if you do go in, don't climb all over it and keep your kids, dogs and cats off it if you can. For health and safety reasons, obviously. Now imagine when this was built in the mid-18th century, if you looked across the lake from the castle to the far north of the shore, you'd have a clear view of this, and it would have looked spectacular. And it was known then as Holy Land. Nothing to do with any religious significance at all. It was just a name given to it when the folly was erected in 1839. It was made to resemble a ruined castle. Right, here we have the boathouse with a pump house and a water wheel at the side of the lake. Come on, Bob. Now around the 1830s a water supply system for the grounds was used, and it consisted of a water wheel driven pump powered by water from the lake. And the water was distributed to the various gardens, as well as providing fountains in the ground and supplying the necessary hydraulic force to operate a lift in the main house. Now here we have what looks like a portal to another realm. Interesting. Definitely looks like a Stargate. Right, we're at St Bartholomew's, the parish church for the villages of Elvaston, Thorleston and Elvaston. And it's right in the heart of the country park adjacent to the castle. Now there's definitely a church standing here in the time of the Doomsday survey, but there are no apparent remains of that. The oldest fabric of the church was identified by Posner, the famous architectural historian, as around 1200. And you can see the embattled parapets above the corner pinnacles, and they've got gargoyles to the base of each one. Quite unusual ones as well. Yeah, it's a shame we couldn't get inside. There's an old piscina on the south side of the chancel wall, which of course was for cleaning the communal vessels, and that dates from the early 14th century. And there's an old 17th century oak chest which is quite remarkable, that we use for keeping the parish funds safely and secure. Wasps, bees, hornets, I don't know what they are, but they're lively. Here you can see how close it is to the castle. Oh, just coming through here where it's all overgrown. Right, I'm now outside of the graveyard. See the border there? Look. I'm looking for the grave of Kathleen Emily, which is the wife of the 9th Earl of Hartington. That's got to be it, hasn't it? And it's a bit of a mystery why she's buried here on her own. Got a proper grave and everything. The earl obviously died before she did. But why's she out here on her own? Was her divorced? Some punishment for something she did? Hartington Memorial Mausoleum is just there, which I'll try and have a look at in a minute. And Kathleen Emily said to walk the graveyard at night. I've got a picture of her looking at other graves and looking back at her own in disgust. This is ashes on the outskirts of the cemetery. Now this is the hunter's tree. Happy hunter's tree. This is where one of the Earls of Hartington, when he died, he requested that his hounds be set free to hunt when he's not there, when he's gone. So an avid hunter used to go 6 days a week. When they released the hounds, they just kept running around this tree. Every day they let them out, they just come to this tree and run around it. So the theory is that his spirit haunts this tree or this area. I don't get a bad feeling with the place at all. But you imagine with that and this, you might do. Interesting. This is where he's buried, in the mausoleum. It's all surrounded by a wall. It's a bit bloody overgrown. And there's his wife. Just a thought, I don't know if they were related. This Kathleen Emily and the chap whose hounds haunt this tree, but could it be her spirit that they're attracted to? I'll have to do a little research on that one. So it seems my theory is wrong. The 8th Earl would have been Kathleen Emily, father-in-law. So I'm thinking the only reason she's buried outside the mausoleum is because she's a woman. Let me know if you have any other ideas. Look at that tangle of roots and branches. Typical yew tree. Now the story of the ghost of a scullery maid. She's been seen around the castle, but around the kitchen. Obviously she worked in the kitchen. Allegedly she became pregnant. Nobody knows who by, but you can suspect the way things went on in them days. And apparently she committed suicide by jumping off the roof. Some say she was pushed, but nobody knows. But this is where she's buried, bless her. In remembrance of Hannah, beloved daughter. There's a parent, she's a 22-year-old, sadly. I don't know if you can read that, I'm struggling. But yeah, that's where she's buried. Tragic. There is so much more ghostly activity connected with the building. The Gothic Hall has ghostly activity in the dead of night. Footsteps are heard walking when there's nobody there. Doors are often open and close on their own. There are so many ghosts connected with the building, but the most prolific is the Grey Lady. Most places have a Grey Lady. On the gallery, a woman in grey has been seen roaming in this area quite often, but nobody seems to know who she is. But she actually comes out of the house and walks along the pathway to the graveyard. She's often seen wandering the graveyard as well. Could it be Kathleen Emily? And there's a male ghost on the top floor in the servants' quarters, believed to be a gamekeeper, James Booth. And it's said that a particular chair has been seen moving on its own on the upper floor near the atrium. It's said to be waiting for the lady of their house. Why is just rumours, but you can imagine. The lady of the house and the gamekeeper. Many people's opinions, this is probably the scariest part of the whole castle. God, look at this old willow. And I'm back at the Portal of Oblivion.